Yo, welcome in everybody to podcast episode number 10. Let's go. We got our guest, Jackie Quinones in the house. How you feeling?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. We also got OJ in the house on the producer station. How you feeling, my man?
I'm good.
Let's go. And we got Dito on the boards. How you doing, my man?
Yo, what's good with it?
Let's go. All right, welcome in everybody. If you're just now joining us, we are live on Twitch and YouTube. So for all of our live audience, welcome. We also got a couple of in-house guests here as well. Lolo, how you feeling? Welcome in. We also got Irvin over there. How you doing, my man? Let's go. All right, so getting right into it. We like to start off all of the podcast by asking who our guest is, where you from, and how'd you get in the industry?
Ooh, okay. Do we want the long version or the short?
I mean, we got some time, so, just make sure you are educating the people at home on who you are and give some background.
Okay, so I'm from New York originally. I grew up in Queens and Westchester County in Yorktown Heights. I now live in Los Angeles, California. How did I get into the industry? That's a long story. The short version is that I started as a rapper, believe it or not.
Wow.
I was a rapper. I was working for Puff at the time when I got introduced to acting. I mean, I had dabbled in it a little bit, but my producer was like, you should try your hand at acting. And they had a role for a film called And Be Real, where they wanted a rapper. So I went in, I auditioned for that, and they were like, we've kind of already cast the family around the lead, and they're all darker skinned, so can you come back for another role? And it was the comedic relief. And so I went in for that. I ended up booking it, and I remember my first day on set. I delivered the lines, they yelled cut, and everybody started laughing. And I was like, what is this? This is cool.
Like the comedic aspect of it all?
Yeah, and that was it. That was it for me. I was like, I forgot all about music, and I just jumped head first into, film and TV.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, are we going to get some rapping on the show today?
There has never been a time that I've mentioned that where people don't ask me to rap.
Of course.
And it's been so long that, no, I can't, no.
I mean, Dito does make beats, so you want to drum up a beat real quick, and then we'll get into it?
I got something up my sleeve.
We'll each lay down the bar.
I would have come prepared. Dito, we can politic after. I would have come prepared.
Yeah, okay. I know. We're learning something new every day, but that's amazing. So the fact that you were in comedy, you do a wide range of stuff, which we'll get into as well. But the fact that you kind of come from the whole comedic background, even the music background, do you find yourself kind of navigating or gravitating to that sort of feel in the movie scene? Like, do you like doing comedies in film? Do you like doing even music videos, for example, in terms of when you're thinking about films?
Well, I want to clarify. I am not a comedian. I don't do stand-up. I'm not there are characters that I do that are funny. Like I did a character for that particular film. But me, myself, I don't think that I can write comedy. I mean, that's a very specific, very difficult thing to do. I try. So I come from kind of a dark kind of field of view. And the more recent film I did does have comedic elements, but I'm interested in all of it. I'm just interested in good storytelling.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you say you're more interested, or you come from more of that kind of dark perspective. Is that something that is because you just kind of want to show the world in sort of that sort of light? Where are you kind of tired of the whole Disney, everything's grand and you want to kind of show the duality of the world? Or is it just that's just kind of how your mind works in terms of how you storytell?
I think I love Disney stuff. I love storytelling across the board. So I'm not, trying to make a statement in terms of the kind of storytelling I prefer. I think for me, it's more about how I began. And rapping for me was really my way of getting my rage out on the page when I started writing. And I think for me, creating has always been cathartic. And I do sort of feel and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're an artist as well, but I do sort of feel like people that get into this field are a little bit crazy.
You have to be, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be. And not only that, but there's kind of, I think, a catharsis that happens with all artists in terms of their past and how they bring that to their art form. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting too, because do you think that the artist starts off with that little crazy hair, or is it something they develop because of the art?
That's interesting. I don't know. I think it's different for every artist. I do want to believe that like we're born as artists innately, but if you can become a narcissist, you can become an artist. You know what I mean? So
An artist, I guess, for sure.
which
That's
we have a
interesting.
lot of in this business too. So,
Especially
yeah,
in LA, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
there's a wide range of people in LA for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
So, I mean, outside of that, you do a bunch of different stuff like we talked about. So, you creative, you do writing, you do, I think you were even assistant directing on the short film that we worked on. And what out of all those things, was it all just kind of right out the gates is all that we are? Or is it you just kind of wanted to try different avenues along the way and those things kind of popped up?
I think for me it was sort of navigating. When I came out to LA, it was I'm, an actress. That's what I was. That's what I wanted to do, and unfortunately didn't work out that way. But I was like, I want to be involved in film or TV, however I can be. And so I continued writing. I was always a writer. Continued writing, and I started working behind the scenes and found that I liked it just as much. I worked in everything from management to development to producing, ADing, writing. So I got a pretty good overall view or bird's eye view of what filmmaking entailed as a whole. And I think that's what eventually led me to creating my own stuff, because I was like, I'm not getting the opportunities, so why not create them for myself and for others around me that aren't.
Do you feel like it is a hindrance sometimes, the fact that you kind of do a lot of different things? Because I know, like, especially like maybe 10 years ago or whatever, maybe like if you were like a gaffer, for example, you were just known as a gaffer. And if you kind of came out the gate one day, you're like, oh, I also DP, like people obviously either wouldn't take you seriously or they would not want to put you in that boat. Do you feel like that's still the case, or do you ever feel like because you are doing all these different roles that it kind of takes away from the other roles per se? Like, let's say you if you're like constantly like, what do you mostly do out of all those things? Would it be writing? Would it be
Writing? I mean, the
Yeah.
one thing that I can control that I can do all the time is write.
Okay.
I'm always writing. So, and I'm definitely an actor. Directing didn't come about until, I couldn't find a director to direct something, and then I did it, and I was like, I kind of like this too. This is fun. And producing, again, necessity. I couldn't find someone to produce my project. I had already worked with producers. I knew what it entailed, and I just kind of threw spaghetti at a wall and was like, I guess I'm doing it,
Yeah.
So, do I think that it's a hindrance? No, I don't. I think, at least for me as talent, as a writer and an actor, and a director, because that's, creative as well, I think it opens your eyes to how much work is involved. It really makes you realize that this is a business. It's fun, it's creative, but it's hard work. And I think that has changed me tremendously in terms of even auditioning, like things like that. So,
Yeah, because I think also too, like maybe like that's actually a perfect example, because the director is kind of the like head honcho of the set per se. Like, do you like it could be seen as like, oh well, she's really an actress, or she's really a writer, like she doesn't know how to direct or whatever. Maybe you get some of those sort of vibes sometimes too. But I do agree with you in terms of seeing like how much work really happens, especially as a director too. Like, you kind of need to know what each department is
Exactly.
responsible for,
Yeah.
so that way you can account for all that. You can prepare
Right,
for all that stuff as
exactly.
well.
And the reality is too, like, the director is not really the head honcho. The director is just telling every other head honcho in their department what their vision is. And a good director is collaborative enough that each person in their department gets to be creative. Like, everybody puts their own input into the project, and that's what makes for a really great project. At least that's what I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's always got to be balanced, I think, though, too. Like, I mean, I guess it's different for every set, but like, for example, like sometimes people want to get like super creative on something, or they want to kind of like try different things, but it's like, there's a set amount of time you have to get stuff done. So it's kind of like, well,
Right.
here's the vision. Let's stick to the plan. Let's get it done this way, et cetera. But I do agree as well, because even with what we do, I mean, we got a robot sitting in the middle of the room right now, right? And we do a lot of specialty motion stuff, and it's like we put many, many hours into our craft, and a lot of people are not educated on the nitty gritty of that. So being able to consult with each person, like you said, the head of each department, to know like, hey, like I know that this system's going to take X amount of time, or need this type of power, or whatever it may be. So really consulting with those people is super important.
And yeah, I mean, there is a vision that everybody, I mean, the director is responsible for the vision and making sure that people execute on the vision, because there has to be a plan set, you know, in place to make sure that you don't go off the rails. I mean, you are telling a story at the end of the day. So yeah, there has to be some sort of reining in sometimes, for sure.
Definitely. What was like the first project you directed? Was it a short film, movie?
Does it count if I didn't know I was directing at the time?
Let's talk about it. Like, I want to hear this story.
So before I even knew I wanted to do film, I took a film and video course. Excuse me. Before I even knew I wanted to do film, I took a film and video course in college, and I don't know what I was thinking, but we had a control room where we had multiple different cameras. And I wanted to do a play on sex, lies, and videotape. And so I put this girl in the middle of the room, and I had the lights just kind of, it was horrible. Different colors flashing on her. And I was like, just talk about a pretend experience where you got raped. And she's like, what the fuck are we doing right now? Because everybody else was doing like newscasting and whatever. And I was like, no, do something really dramatic. And so that was, I think, the first thing I directed. But the first thing I really directed was my short film.
Got you. And when was that short film produced?
Oh God, I don't even remember now. It was called Sick, and I think we did it in 2017.
2017.
Maybe? Yeah,
like about 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So what was that experience like? So what was the difference of, do you feel like there was less pressure not knowing you were directing the other thing, and you were just kind of letting the spirit be free on that one? And then was there more pressure coming up to like, this is my short film, I got to make sure everything's perfect, etc.? Or was it just kind of the same? What was the...
No. Ignorance is bliss. I didn't know I was directing. I was like, oh, let's do this thing. And
so,
then,
just kind of let it flow.
People just kind of liked it. And then with Sick, it was like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a really, really fantastic learning experience, and so I'm grateful for that. And I had so many wonderful people around me. Like, I couldn't have failed, you know? Because
of your village.
Because of the team. Yeah, it's not one person. It's the team.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What are some of the lessons you learned? Like, so for example, those that are watching at home, or even after we did this live stream, you want to get into directing, you want to get into, the industry. What are some of the big lessons that you learned from those experiences that you could share?
Pre-production is the only thing that matters in filmmaking, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Like, if you do not prepare and you don't know what you're shooting, you're never going to fit. Like, it's not going to work. The longer you spend preparing, the more likely it is that you're going to make your days. And I mean, this is small, but when you're talking about huge films that are, spending $5 million a day, not getting your day means an extra $5 million for the budget, which is not good.
Yeah.
You're fired.
Yeah.
So, so for me, I think what I really learned was definitely a lot of pre-production and ensuring that you have a really great communication style and establish relationships with all of the people that you're working with in order to put forth a concrete vision that they all understand. And everybody communicates and understands differently. So it's important to really bone up on how you share your vision with others.
And is that, and that's deeper than just wording it differently, because some people are visual learners, some people are hands-on learners, et cetera, et cetera. So do you find yourself trying to adapt to all those things at the same time, essentially?
Absolutely. And sometimes, it's difficult sometimes because you can have a lookbook, you can have visuals, but you might want to be trying to, explain a completely different shot, and if you have a team that doesn't really understand that, you have to figure out how to communicate that without becoming frustrated, especially, when things get tight and you're, running late, and you have to be able to communicate respectfully and truth be told, I think we all have issues with that sometimes, especially when we're
Yeah.
under the gun. you
Yeah,
know?
and you're 14 hours in, and pizza for second lunch again, and
And
you're
you're
just like, whoa,
exhausted.
what are we doing here?
Yeah. You just want to go home and sleep. You know that you have an early call time the next day. You're like, I'm
Yeah.
going to get 2 hours at most. Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the film industry, it could be, it's like the most rewarding yet draining experience of your life simultaneously. It's just one of those things.
1000%. That's the best way to explain it.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about like kind of the types of stuff that you like to shoot, et cetera. But do you have like a specific style? Like who inspires you? Like, is there anybody you look up to? Is there any certain like style? Like it's a little bit easier, I think, as like, I come more from a DP background, so I can say, because that's more of like, you're in charge of the look of stuff, right? So
Right.
it's kind of easier to kind of pinpoint, stylistic choices here. But if you could, what are some like style choices you make as a director, even as like as an actress? Like, is there any sort of like character traits you like to really embody? I guess would be a good way to ask it. Or what if you had to explain your style?
I think I look at film overall, right? Like I look at the entire project, everything from the script to the performance to the color to the editing to the direction. So I think in terms of that, I would say Spielberg, obviously. I mean, I think he's hands down on everybody's top, right? Kubrick, Hitchcock, even some of Polanski's stuff. Nolan, of course. Nolan did something really cool with Inception, where at least I think it was in its Inception in his editing process, where he wanted a discomfort, or maybe it was the editor who suggested this, but the creativity and like the kind of things that sparked for me. So essentially, like what he did was he would take a frame out of certain scenes so that you consciously aren't aware of this missing frame, but while you're watching it, you feel a discomfort and you're not sure why. And that to me is like genius storytelling. Like, how can we elevate the medium? How can we create new ways to tell the same old stories? Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And I want to double down on that a little bit, because it's like, you described a feeling. And I think a lot of people, especially when you're thinking about movies, it's very visually. I mean, so much so that we even sometimes forget about sound, which is half the movie, right? But we're so encapsulated with this visual representation of the story that I think we have to come back to what you just said, and what is the audience feeling at that time?
Yeah,
How can they connect with it? How can they want to run away from it, or whatever it may be? And that's huge.
Exactly, because I think that that's the way that you get to people. So for me, I think storytelling is obviously at the crux of human development, but also we have a responsibility as storytellers, right? And that's not necessarily the truth for everybody. That's just the truth for me. And I feel like I need to be responsible for the stories that I choose to tell and the stories that I choose to put out in the world. And what I try to do is try to make sure that the stories I'm telling are affecting the world in a positive socio-political way, right? And if that's what I'm doing, then I have to be very aware of how I'm affecting people emotionally, because the way that you get to people to change or to reflect, or the way that you hold a mirror up to society and have an effect on an audience is emotionally. They don't pay attention to fact. They pay attention to what they feel.
Exactly.
And so I think the most important thing in storytelling is making sure that you are portraying some sort of feeling, which is why the first short film that I did, Sick, there were multiple endings, potential endings that we had for that film. And I ended up going with the least popular one, that people were like, we don't know why you're doing this. The story, like, it leaves you feeling kind of like it makes no sense. I was like, exactly, that's the point. The film is about relationship abuse. It's about being in an abusive relationship. And so the point of the film was to comment on this and leave you feeling unresolved the way that you would if you were in a relationship like that. So it was kind of an experiment, and I think it was something that people weren't used to, but it did what I wanted it to do.
Yeah.
And the women and the men who had been in relationships like that came up to me afterward and were like, I totally get this film, and that was what was important to me, to speak to an audience that I don't feel like has been spoken to before.
That's really huge, actually. And you probably agree with me when I say this, in that it almost is more rewarding to impact those just handful of people than to be like generally kind of like, oh yeah, that was a great film from like the masses per se, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's room for all of it. And I
True.
think, I do think, though, that old adage of like the more personal it becomes, the more universal it is true. Because, again, we're dealing with emotions. Like if I'm telling you something very personal about my life, suddenly you're going to understand it more because the personal is universal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we're all like really connected at the end of the day. And I think that a lot of people like don't feel that people would really like connect with them or understand what they're going through, because it's almost like, like when you're imagining like all the bad scenarios in your head, but none of them ever happen. I think it's like kind of the same thing. Like our mind likes to kind of play tricks on us, where it's like we think that none of these people really understand that story or what we're going through, but they may have gone through it themselves.
Exactly.
But we've already made up this thing in our mind, or didn't take the time to actually like learn about it, or they weren't open to share about it, that we're all, like you said, personal is universal, and
Exactly.
it all kind of connects together.
Exactly.
That's it's huge, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's why they also say like write what's real, or like as a writer and as a creator, like work on projects that really speak to you personally, because you'll be able to translate them in a way that will resonate with a larger audience.
Yeah, because it's more about depth, not width.
Exactly.
I think, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
What's important to you will be important to others as long as you translate that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge. So you kind of already answered this too, but just kind of want to just cover all my bases here. Writing style, is there anything that like kind of particularly like you like to dive into? I mean, obviously you like to be personal, you already have like your kind of influences, et cetera, like that, but is there anything that you could mention outside of what we talked about that is unique to you in terms of the style of writing?
It depends on the project I'm working on, but the things that I like to write that I don't know that I'll always show or what have you are, I love magical realism. I love this idea of exploring imagination on screen in ways that we haven't seen before. Like in one of my films, maybe this is giving something away, I don't know, but I don't care. A little girl discovers a hole behind a bookcase and kind of crawls through the hole, stuff like that. Like a never ending, you go underneath a bed and it's a never ending trail to somewhere else, or, opening a closet to space or things like that. Like
Yeah.
I love things that makes sense within the narrative, right?
Correct.
So that it makes you think, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's interesting too, yeah. And like just having those identifiers as well, in terms of like, this is stuff that I see on a daily basis, but maybe I don't always look under my bed. But if I did, I'd be in space right now.
Exactly,
Or something.
exactly.
Obviously, like, that's the fantasy part of it,
Right.
and all that sort of stuff. But do you think that there's any like common myths about what you do, or even about the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I think as an actor, definitely.
Okay,
I
let's
think-
talk about it.
And I understand it because, I didn't understand it when I was just an actor, which is why I'm grateful that I have experienced the other side. But like, and I'm sure you've experienced this too. There are actors that can be difficult to work with, but there are actors that are wonderful to work with and that understand that it's a business. And so I think this common misconception that all actors are, kind of
Pretentious or
narcissistic, pretentious jerks that are going to be late on set and not know their lines and not respect the, the director or the DP and kind of, throw cups of water at assistants or whatever. That's not true. And I wish that the industry would be a little bit more understanding of that with the actors that they work with.
got you.
Yeah, that's other than that, I think outsiders, like who don't understand the business might think that it's kind of a frivolous business and kind of like, what are you doing with your life? Things like that.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
I don't agree. I just don't. Yeah.
It's just, yeah. And it's like, again, we just have to pour so much into it as well, and just like put literally all of our waking time and time and effort and thoughts into this sort of stuff too. But I think it's becoming less of that though. I think like as like things, I mean, even like you said like you were a YouTuber like 5 years ago, people would be like, okay, whatever. But like
Right.
now it's like there's people making $1 million. People are really starting to see that now and really starting to understand like the world's changing. Art is a viable form of a career, whether it be in film or anything else. But yeah, that's interesting that you say that as
Yeah,
well.
and I think the fact that all of these tools are accessible to people now and they understand that they can create their own stuff. They can create their own narratives with a cell phone and YouTube, but they're not doing it because they realize it's not easy. I think that's also opening up kind of, the public's eyes to the fact that this is not an easy endeavor. It takes a lot of work and skill and creativity, and yeah.
Yeah. I was just talking about this. I forget who I was talking about, but it's definitely like they were like kind of they're a little bit more old school, so they were like kind of like saying like, oh yeah, back in the day, like, you had to buy a mat box for a few $1,000s, and not, so it was exclusive, or it was like very like, you know what I mean, it was like only a handful of ways to do it or get it or whatever. And it's like nowadays, like, you can pull out your cell phone and make a movie sort of stuff. So it's like there's like that there's always the good and the bad, right? Whereas like the good being like, okay, cool, like maybe there is the next Spielberg who just didn't have the ability to buy or have access to this stuff that now can do it. But then there's also the, like, oh yeah, look, I'm a filmmaker now, when in reality it's like you're not putting in the necessary time or effort to actually develop something, that's truly amazing. So do you feel, I don't know if you want to answer this because it's kind of hard to answer, but do you feel like the saturation is a good or a bad thing? I know it's kind of a double-edged sword there, but over generally the way that it's going in the direction, how do you feel about it?
I don't know that I feel any way about it. I think cream always rises to the top, and the best things will get discovered, and when they do, the audience will fight for them, which is what's been happening. So I just think we all need to focus on doing the best we can with what we have and making sure that we keep improving our art form.
That's damn. I thought I had you at the trap card, and you're like, nah, I got a good response to that one. That was a great answer. And that's so true, though. That actually makes a lot of sense, because and it's not even just like a cream rises to the top overnight sort of stuff. Like, because you can be the best at it for a day, you know what I mean? But it's really like, who's going to be able to be consistent over the course of months or years or whatever it may be.
Time. And it's also, like we were saying before, like, the cream rising to the top doesn't just stem from, are you a good storyteller? It stems from, are you good with people? This is a people business. Like, you have to be able to get along with others. You have to be able to allow the vision of others to be incorporated in your project. You have to be collaborative, and you have to be understanding, and you have to be willing to grow. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They think they are bigger than they are before they are, and it hinders their progress, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And it's like, and I think though too, is like, they think that sometimes they could just get a good result by just like, hey, do this, when it's like reality, it's like people are going to perform better when they're happy, right? So like, even something as having good crafty on set or whatever, maybe like just these little things that really do add up.
Caring about the people you're working with.
I mean,
and
not only this, like, for example, like, you have those handful of people, I'm sure that you have grown really good relationships with. So now it's like, if there's someone that you don't really know, it's like, no, this is for example, this is just kind of example, one of them, this is my rate, I'm sticking to it, whatever. But if there's someone that you've grown these relationships with, such as, in the people business, you're going to do that extra mile for those people, whether it's, not doing it for your rate, or, not feeling it, even if you're tired after 14 hours, you're like, hey, like, you just feel that, I guess, loyalty, or you feel that camaraderie.
And also you want to continue to work with them. But this is what I mean when I say relationships begin to splinter and you begin to kind of cut yourself off at the knees, is when you start to kind of forego those loyalties with the people that you have built relationships with early on, to work on bigger, better projects with people that you don't know as well, who are really just hiring you to hire you for that project, versus the people that you've grown relationships with who want to build with you. There's a difference. And when when you're unable to specify the difference between who's who, I think that's when you start to kind of lose your way. It's so important to have a team around you that believes in you, that you believe in, that you grow with. That is the key to success in any business. Trust and growth with the same people over and over again. I mean, I think that's the key.
Yeah, you're really preaching to the choir on that one. I mean, it's literally what we're about.
Yeah, exactly.
At the Cinema Junkies.
Which I love. I think that's dope.
Yeah, that's been the story. I mean, again, like, even me meeting Cash, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it may be, same thing, just whether it was moving to LA or just doing all these little steps along the way, I knew it in my mind. I was like, exactly what you said. You got to find those people that are, that you can grow with, and that you really can contribute to each other's visions,
Right.
and really
And
make
that you
something
can
great.
trust,
Yeah.
and whose wave you've got to be on the same wavelength. You have to be willing to do the work, but also understand that like there's a difference between work and there's a different and friendship, and how to balance the two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they both coexist. But yeah, like you said, balance
Exactly.
for sure.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Awesome. Do you guys, Dito, OJ, you guys have anything, any questions, anything you want to add to that? Oh, I think you're muted over there.
Am I muted?
Oh, there you go. We live.
Don't
I mean,
fuck
okay, let's ask you this. Like, what do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like it is truly important to find that village to grow with, or is it a combination of that and then just working with like, I always kind of, if you guys watch sports, I kind of relate it to like, you have like the Golden State Warriors, for example, F in the chat for the Warriors in the playoffs, but, sorry, Dito. Like where it's like everyone kind of does their part, right? Yeah, you have the Curry, etc., but you have that, right? And then you have like whatever team LeBron's on, it's just LeBron, right? So it's like, yeah, like that sort of stuff.
LeBron got AD.
I mean, I'm just giving an example, bro. But like, for example, like, so do you feel it's more important to just kind of like have that, try to find that all-star crew every single time, even though if it's different people, or do you feel it's more of a better solution to have everyone that does their part and kind of grow together that way?
I mean, I feel like having people, building a team and, building it through a team obviously creates chemistry. So once you get on set, I mean, like you said, it's like a sports team. You go to practice with your team, you practice, you build the chemistry in practice, you know what I'm saying? And then you go into the game and then you execute. And I mean, if you're able to execute at a high level, then you can be successful.
Yeah, that's the key word that you said was chemistry, for sure. I agree. Dito, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's like when you on like people that's either better than you or just as good, you grow faster. When it's constantly like you're the all-star player, and then you got to carry everybody, then it get kind of hard.
There's no room to grow.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's balance. You have to have balance. You have to be able to work with your team and grow with your team, and everybody should be able to like do their own thing as well, so that they can grow and learn from people who are further along, and in time you build more relationships, but there's definitely a balance for sure.
Well, I think there's an old saying that goes really good with that too, is I think it's something along the lines, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Me
Yeah.
too.
because there's not really any room. They can't learn anything. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, there's things to learn, but very minuscule compared to what you can learn
Yeah.
if you're in a room with 5 other people that are just at a way higher level.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love being surrounded by money. That's my thing. I'm like, if they have money, I'm in the right room because they're doing something right and I want to learn, know?
Yeah.
That sounds probably superficial in the way that I said it, but I didn't mean it that way.
Okay. In your eyes, money equals success. So if you're in a room with
Yes and
successful
no.
people, okay.
Successful. Let's change that.
Sure.
Not surrounded by money, surrounded by success.
There you
There's a
go.
difference.
Yeah, because you could be
there's a
handed
difference.
money and not know what the hell you're doing.
Exactly,
So, yeah.
exactly.
I
Thank you
understand
for
what you're saying.
correcting me.
No, I understand what you're saying. And then as I'm listening to this, I was like, wait, hold on.
She sounds
Yeah.
really shallow and superficial.
No,
Yeah,
that's not
what I meant.
that's not what we meant, y'all. That's
Thanks
not
for
what we meant.
correcting me.
No, I agree though. I definitely agree. Like, and that could look like many different things, right? It could be money. It can be how people look at you. Because if you respect. So like if I walk into a room and I notice that everyone's coming up to you and acting very positive towards you, that tells me something.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if they're kind of like avoiding you or whatever, that also tells me something as well. And
Right.
and it's all like obviously the 7 chakras of the universe, I guess, if you would. I don't know if that's a good example, but it's never just black and white, or it's never just this or that. It's like there's a spectrum. There's so many different
Correct.
levels to
Yeah.
each nuance, I guess you would say.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Amazing. I thank you guys for your insight. I like how we just had it always goes back to sports, but I mean, that's how we see it though too. It's like, even when it comes to the film stuff, it's like, you don't just pull up to the Super Bowl without doing those, 2 days or those,
Without training camp.
the training camps, the things like, you don't just get on the field every Sunday. You get on the field every single day for that Sunday, right?
Right.
Or whatever it may be. So
Right.
that's why we're
exactly.
always like in the studio and working on our craft. And how do you find yourself working on your craft? Actually, do do you work on your craft by practicing writing? Do you like to watch movies to kind of study it? Do you like to read books? Like, let's talk about your process.
I do all of those, all of the above. What I haven't done in a while and I want to get back into is definitely classes. I love taking acting classes because I just love meeting my peers and getting to work and getting to read new plays and play. It's just fun, you know?
Get in the sandbox for a little while.
Yeah, exactly. And writing, I mean, writing is, I'm always discovering new things. But believe it or not, as creatives, like, I think we are always growing just by living. So I find it very important to experience new things, to go to new places, to go to, you know, music festivals or museums, or, you know, to take in new and different art and architecture, and all of that informs your art. Whether you know it or not at the time, it becomes the life that you've lived on a page or on screen or in a shot. You know what I mean? So I think it's also really important to just keep living and keep exploring.
Definitely. We got a question in the chat as well from Advanced One, aka Cassius. Where can we find?
Hi, Cassius.
Yeah, where can we find more actresses, or what is a good place to like kind of meet those people? I guess. Would you say like classes is the best place?
Oh, absolutely. As a filmmaker, you mean?
I guess as a filmmaker, yeah, because
Yeah.
we're not really, you know, the inside joke is I'm working on my acting career. You know, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, just like. I think he's asking a little bit more from a logistical standpoint, I'm assuming. Like, yeah, like what would be a good place to kind of find those like-minded people, but in that role?
As actors?
Yeah.
Definitely going to plays and making sure you stay afterward if you like any of the actors, and striking up conversations. Definitely acting classes. I always recommend that anybody, whether you're a DP, you know, a gaffer, I don't know, a runner, a PA, whatever you are, that you take acting classes, just so that you can understand the world of the actor, and you can create those relationships that will last. I met a lot of the actors that I know on set or in classes, you know, and the people who are in classes religiously will be successful. They will, because they are serious about their craft.
That's interesting. I never thought to do that though, because it's like, yeah, I think like
I know it's uncomfortable and it's weird, but like, I mean, I have a director that I worked with who didn't begin as an actor. He began as a writer-director and became an actor, and found several actors in class. You know what I mean? Like, I found actors that I work with now as a director in class, and yeah, I mean, you just go to plays. I mean, actors want to work, so.
Well, let me ask you about this though. Is like, so plays specifically, isn't that like a different style? Like, because like.
Yes and no.
Because like it kind of coexists, but like Broadway, for example, is a different world than like TV and movies, right?
Yes. But there is a kernel of truth in all the best actors are honest. And so if you find an actor that you see on stage that's honest, you can absolutely dial that down. What's hard to do is take a film actor and put them on stage, because making honest bigger without making it over the top is hard to do.
So when you say honest, you're talking about not from a truth standpoint, you're talking from.
I'm talking
honest to the character, or
honest to the person portraying the character.
Okay, yeah.
A suspension of disbelief. So for instance, I've never, you know, I'm so dark, but I'm going to go there. I've never murdered someone, right? But if I'm playing a character who's murdering someone, where's the honesty in that scene for me? And how can I make this real as a human being? And you can tell the difference. I mean, you feel good acting. I mean, look at, everybody knows that Meryl Streep is the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
It's because she brings honesty to everything she does. You can see that in someone. So
or even like the Heath Ledger, where what was it? What did he do? It was like
He Joker?
Yeah, like Joker, or like what? There was like there's certain characters are like where people like they'll lock themselves in a room for 3 days straight, so they actually kind of make themselves a little bit crazy to portray that crazy character. I guess.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's method acting. That's what we call method acting.
but that helps with the honesty, right? In theory,
for some people, yeah. For others, no. Like I think there's an importance to understanding things, but there's also an importance to imagination and to play. You know, when we're kids, we don't think to ourselves, how am I going to be a cop or an Indian? We just do it.
That's
we play.
Yeah.
It's a suspension of disbelief and an ability to play and allow yourself to be creative without judging yourself is really kind of what it's about at the core of it.
That's always huge. That was a really good point of putting it. When we're kids, we don't think about how we're going to do it. We just do it. I'm writing that shit down. Okay, cool. No, that was super good. And did you find yourself like kind of growing up like imagining like those sort of characters, or like did you imagine as a kid like kind of the things that you imagine today, or is there anything that you kind of brought from your childhood that you can relate to or fall back on today?
In terms of my art, you mean?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I just kind of wanted to double down on that whole like, you know.
When I'm a kid,
Yeah.
I think one of the things I used to do when I was a kid was, and I keep trying to find this version of Alice in Wonderland, but there was a live action version of Alice in Wonderland where, I mean, it's Alice in Wonderland, but I just, for some reason, it just always stuck with me. And she would pick everything up and be like, "Oh, drink me," and then she'd drink it. So, or eat me, or don't eat me, or whatever. And so I remember going around my house, and my grandmother always had these like little figurines and little tiny bottles that had nothing in them for what reason, I don't know. She's Puerto Rican, so we just like having a lot of stuff. But
Yeah.
so I would pick up these little figurines and just, "Oh, drink me," and pretend I was shrinking or what. A kid, I don't know. But I think that always stuck with me, and that idea of like magical realism, right? Of
Yeah.
like, that would be so cool. So I guess that, other than like, I used to, be a violinist when I was a kid too. I thought I was going to be like Bach or Mozart. Okay.
We need to bring back the violin and the rapping. All right,
God.
let's
Oh God.
do it. We're making it happen.
How do you
okay?
go from violin to rap? You
No,
get
together.
angry in your teen years.
There could be violins, okay?
There's Miri Ben-Ari, who's the hip hop violinist. So,
Yeah. I mean-
it does exist.
That's our next story. Is violent violins. That's going to be our next concept piece. Do you feel like so we already talked a little bit about like important traits such as like being a people person in this industry, but is there any other traits that you really want to capitalize on in terms of being important to be successful in this career?
Stick-to-itiveness. And that's not a word, but just having the grit and the courage to continue forward no matter what.
Yeah.
Don't stop. If you're on a trajectory and you're on a path, you are further today than you were yesterday, and you didn't come all this way for nothing. So just keep going.
I like that a lot. And one of my old mentors as well, kind of the way that she put it was just be 1% better every single day.
Exactly.
Don't aim for 10%, don't aim for 100%, whatever, just 1%.
Exactly.
1%.
Every little thing that you do, like if there's a day where I'm working on my other job that helps me supplement my income and I haven't done anything towards my art, I will write a page. Or even if I'm watching a film, I'll watch something that pertains to what I want to write to give me ideas. Or, I'll talk to somebody about a project to get their feedback. Or every little bit counts. Every little thing that you do towards your passion or your art form or whatever it is that you do in life, if you work towards it every day, even with just one tiny thing, even reading an article, you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Just want to remind everybody that's watching live right now, if you guys do have any questions for our awesome guest here, please put them in the chat. We will definitely get to your questions. Always love hearing from those viewers as well. So definitely put those in. And we are going to be getting into a fun little segment in a little bit too. So I hope you got those movie trivia down. We gave you a little sneak peek earlier, but I know
We're
you're
horrible at trivia.
That's okay.
I'm the
Also,
worst.
for those of you in chat as well, get ready. If you guys are good at the movie trivia, we will give a chance for a lifeline as well. So make sure you get those brains going as well. So awesome. So outside of that, what do you kind of see like, okay, let's talk about this. So you're a writer. I know the big thing in LA right now is this whole writer strike going on right now.
Yes, sir.
So I think there's a few different angles that's kind of coming from it, right? So some people are saying it's, AI, they're worried about that. A lot of, another perspective, is the fact that the whole streaming services that have come up for the past like 5 years or so, like that's really kind of the new kid on the block, and the old rules that were in place weren't really set for that, et cetera, et cetera. What do you know about the situation? How do you feel about the situation? And
Well,
what do you feel is the right thing to do here?
I think the writers' strike is a microcosm of what's happening in this country as a whole. There is a significant obliteration of the middle class, and that is because of these large corporations paying their biggest CEOs and those at the top more money that is not trickling down to the people who are working for them. And so I think in that sense, this writer strike is really important, not only for the writers and for our business as a whole, but for this country to understand that you can and you should fight for what's right. And artists should be paid what they're due. It's only fair. I know that, I'm not WGA yet, but I will be eventually. I have, been out on the picket lines in solidarity. SAG yesterday just released an article stating that they will be calling for a SAG strike, asking their members if they will want to strike.
DGA too, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean the DGA contracts are up soon as well. I'm not sure, have they released something? I know that they were in talks.
June, I think they were planning on it. I'm not entirely sure. So
Yeah.
was it? Yeah.
It's June. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to be an industry-wide strike, and for the same reason I just mentioned, and I think it's necessary. It is. We need to make sure that we let them know that this is not okay. And as far as AI is concerned, I mean, yes, it is concerning. It's very concerning because, they're able to harness voiceover. They're able to harness, there are SAG contracts that state that, we will have access to your image and your voice in perpetuity.
likeness,
We will
essentially.
own you, essentially. Yeah. So they can use you with AI however they see fit. We need to make sure that stops. Now, is AI where it could be yet? No, absolutely not. I mean, it harnesses information. It's not knowledge. But there are other, companies, Wolfram Alpha, I think it's
Yep.
called, that are, working towards understanding the logic and the symbolism behind coding. Or rather, not behind coding, but
Like
creating
language.
code. Right, creating code that allows these computations to logically understand and deduce concepts the way that humans do. That I don't know why we're doing that. Like I genuinely I believe that anything we can imagine can and does exist, and we've all seen
Terminator.
come on. I mean, I didn't even have
iRobot.
to say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, why are we trying to go down this path? I mean,
I think us, the general populace, probably not so much, but obviously the ones that want to have control, I think, are the
yeah. I mean, I think it kind of boils down to what we were discussing before, which is like narcissism. Like the people that are at the top, and not all of them, please, I am not, making a blanket statement, but there are some that are very dangerous because they're more concerned with bigger, better. Some of them believe that they are unstoppable and impenetrable, even if it's a robot. And it's like, no, like eventually that's
our time comes for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. Even if
yeah.
we find the fountain of youth, you only buy 500 years. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And there are more important things that we should be working towards scientifically, like massive impending doom with global warming and climate change. Hello, like, can we work towards that instead of making robots kill us? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in their mind, they're like, well, if the robots, no, just kidding. It's really crazy too. I mean, this is like a whole rabbit hole you can go down as well,
Yeah.
because like there's many theories, and then, it's just hard to really say. And just like anything though, there's good and bad, right?
Right.
You look at
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. AI in the hands of a good person, cool, can maybe detect cancer early and correct that, right?
Right,
But then
right.
also that same AI can turn around, get the nuclear codes and blow us all up.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay,
Yeah,
so
and-
who gets to call these?
right,
shots?
exactly.
So-
And I'm not saying that these aren't helpful tools. They are, and they can be, but we have to make sure that we harness what they do and where they go now early on in the process, rather than letting them sort of run wild willy-nilly. Like, we don't know what can happen if we don't harness the power of AI now. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's very important.
Yeah, I think a lot of people too are like wondering, like, I think people don't understand that this stuff's been in the works for 20, 30,
Yeah.
40, since the 60s, some of it as well. So I think a lot of
Absolutely.
people are like, oh, yeah, well, we need to put a stop to it now. It's like, no, the Pandora's box is already open. So,
It's already open.
yeah.
So we need to ensure that we like I said, that we harness it and we put some kind of like, I don't know, some kind of limits to how we use it and where it's
Yeah.
released. I mean, OpenAI is licensing their programming and their code to other companies, and it's like, well, I don't know if we should be doing that yet. I think we should be talking about how we're going to ensure that this doesn't affect elections, or you know what I mean, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, going back to like how people don't realize it's been around for a while, like we've been this like ChatGPT sure is kind of like a newer thing on the market, but we've been using AI for years now. Think about, the Amazon Alexa or the Siri on your phone or whatever it may be. It's like these things have been around for quite some time.
Gathering tons of information.
Or even like your explore page on your social media, that's all AI shit. Like it's been around, but now I think it's just the way that we interact with it has kind of changed as well. Also, Cash is saying, what do you feel about, so obviously AI is being coded by humans right now, but what about when AI can write its own codes?
Well, that now we're getting into artificial neural networks. It's kind of starting to do that. I mean, it's not writing its own code per se, but it is, because it's learning. And by learning, I mean it's gathering information from the web, information right now. But once that idea combines with the idea of being able to apply logic and you can't say conscious, right? But the type of thinking that we do as humans, then it will be able to write its own code, right? Eventually. I don't know that we'll see it in our lifetime, but it is definitely a possibility.
Well, they're predicting by the year 2030 or even sooner that some of this stuff can
I
happen.
saw like 2045, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Look, I mean, it's scary. It is for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been saying, I think everybody's been saying for years that, like, with the idea of being able to create, human organs with, stem cells and printing, like we are literally playing God now.
Yeah.
We will create eventually a human-like robot with artificial neural networks that's connected to the net and that is smarter and stronger and more capable than any human. And it's scary.
Yeah.
That's where it's going. I mean, what else would you do with that information? You wouldn't try to put it in a thing that looks like a person?
I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any like end game for, it's just kind of like, whether it was anything that humans have ever built, it's always been about what's next.
Right.
Like there was never anything like, whether it be something super destructive or something super productive, there never has been a point in my opinion that it's like, okay, that's good, we'll stop there. It's always been more, keep going. And now we're just gotten to this point where, and that's why I also like try to account for when people are like Dito, you were just saying this yesterday, I think, where we were talking about, yeah, well, when the cars came out, people that were horse and carriage were not keen on that, right? And then eventually it just kind of grows into it, or like any sort of technology, it's
Yeah.
like, people are like, oh, well, it's going to take our jobs when, factories came about and all these sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is different because it's just what you said. It's like now we're creating something that can potentially think on its own, that's going to be stronger, smarter, etc. It's not just the internet. It's not just the tractor overtaking field workers or whatever it may be. It's like, this is something that's, in my opinion, way bigger, that's going to change the world,
Yeah, I mean, I think the main question here is, when does creation become destruction? And I think in order to live, we have to continue to create, to become better. And I mean, that's just the human nature. And there is sort of, this general idea that creation does sometimes require destruction. Like, we have to chop down a tree to build a house,
Yeah.
right?
or a controlled
But
burn or whatever it may
Correct. But at what point does that become us just being responsible for our own destruction because we don't need the creation we're creating? I think
Yeah.
that's the question that we're trying to answer right now.
Yeah.
We don't need AI, do we? No, I don't think we need it.
Yeah.
but we want to keep creating.
Yeah. It's interesting. All right, guys, that's the show. I'll see you later. No, it's just, and again, this is just a whole rabbit hole that it's just like, because I think, again, you and I and everybody in this room gets it because we're, you know, the majority, right? But I think that, you know, the few that want to be in charge per se, like they have a different plan, different idea, right? But you know,
Greed.
That's a whole.
It's all based on greed. Money.
Yeah.
Money. How can I make more money?
Money, power,
Respect.
rock and roll, sex, drugs, all that shit. No. So, but yeah, again, that's a whole rabbit hole. If you guys, you know, we could talk more about that.
The conversation got real deep.
Yes, it got real deep. It got real deep. But yeah, so if you guys are watching in the chat as well, let us know what you guys think about that whole direction. But specifically, that's obviously as a general idea. But yeah, just when it comes to the film industry as a whole, I mean, obviously, it's going to, and it's interesting too, because people were like, oh, well, the creatives is going to be the last thing to go. Like, it's going to take all of the coders' jobs, and it's going to take all these other jobs, and the creative, you can't take away the human creative, yet that's like the first thing to be being attacked right now.
And the
so
last
it's crazy.
thing that's going to survive is the coder. Like, I'm like, I need to go take some coding classes because they're going to need people to code all this AI that's going to take all our jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the only thing I see surviving.
Yeah, but it's
if
just,
it comes to that, obviously.
It's just interesting how it kind of got reversed along the way.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But let's talk a little bit more about. So, I mean, here's another thing too, because like, even we're gonna get to the point where, because they have like text to images now, right? So you go into there, you're like, elephant on a dancing ball with a purple sky, boom, generates image.
I haven't tried that one yet, but
what's a video? It's just a bunch of images or photos, right? So now they're coming out with the text to video. They already have the text to audio. So pretty soon, within if not our lifetime, you know, our kids' lifetimes, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to either type it or even at that point just think it. Be like, I want to watch For Saving Private Ryan, but on Mars. Here you go. There's your movie.
Exactly,
You know?
and that's
that's
what
crazy.
we're trying to prevent with the writer strike, SAG strike, Directors Guild strike. Like, we want to ensure that we have a livelihood, that we can make money doing what we are good at, what we know, and what we love.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And the greed of these corporations that are clearly operating in the red right now due to the pandemic, and because a lot of these corporations do generally operate on a deficit, they're trying to figure out a way to, you know, lower their bottom line to get out of the red and be in the green and make a profitable quarter every quarter, make more and more money. And how do you do that? By getting rid of the people you have to pay. So it's really about greed and money.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's happening across the board. But luckily we have unions where we can demand more, and hopefully, you know, it helps.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Yeah. We just got to keep fighting. So
Fight the good fight.
Fight the good fight, everybody out there. You know, stand in solidarity, do what you got to do, spread awareness. And yeah, if you guys, even if you're not in the film industry, if you guys enjoy any sort of entertainment or content medium, I mean, kind of have to, you know, stand with the people that are trying to fight the good fight. So
Solidarity, baby.
yes, indeed. All right, so that is the rabbit hole. Let's get into another little topic here. So let's get into that's the future. Let's talk about the past and other movies that you may have seen or not seen. So it is that time, everybody, for Guess That Frame. Hit it. Hit it, Vito.
That frame.
I'm worried for sure. I'm a filmmaker who's probably not going to know answers to any of this.
No, you're totally fine. All right, so first frame should be this one here.
Oh, that's Chris Tucker. You got knocked the fuck out, right? Friday?
Yeah?
Is that the scene where he
Yeah.
says that? Yeah.
All right, so we're starting off super
Yes!
strong. We got Friday in the house as well. And again, if you want to use any lifelines, anybody in chat as well, don't Well, she can't read chat, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah,
If what?
you can't see chat, so I was gonna say chat. Don't put the answers in chat, but you can't see it, so I guess it
can't
doesn't
see it,
really
no.
matter that much. But if you do want to use the lifeline, you could ask chat, or you could phone a friend. So we're going on to.
Oh, I can ask the chat. Okay.
If you know, if you need
Okay.
to.
This is fun.
We'll see. Yes.
We could do a whole show just like this.
Exactly. So this should be number 2, and then yeah.
Oh, that's easy. That's
Yeah.
Black Swan, right?
Yep.
Yeah, baby. That's Natalie Portman.
I thought you guys said you're gonna make this one hard today. What happened?
Yay! Thank you. Make them easy. Make them easy.
Yeah, man. You guys.
Natalie Portman and Black Swan.
You guys bamboozled me. Let me see. Let me go.
But
down.
also, that's one of my favorite films. So.
There you go. I think this is number 3, right? Number 3? Yeah. Okay, cool. Number 3. All right. We're upping up the difficulty level.
Oh, this is oh my gosh. Kevin! What's the name of the movie?
No.
It's not?
I don't know. I'm just saying, no, we're not helping. Nobody say shit.
What's it called? Home Alone. Yeah,
She
right?
got it.
Yeah, baby.
She got it.
Listen, here, come here. Let me talk to you for a second. She came in and be like, I'm not gonna get any. I don't know. I'm really bad at this sort of stuff.
I am.
You're 3 for 3 right now.
I generally am really bad at stuff like this.
Okay, this is how you can tell she's a really good actress, because she
Oh
fooled
my
me
God.
and was like, I don't know any of this, and
No,
then sure enough.
I'm being real. I'm being honest. I'm generally really bad. Watch me miss them.
Sure enough, here we are. All right, let me see. That one right there. I just went past it. Boom. That's the latest DaBaby music video. I'm just kidding.
I think I know what it is, but I'd like to ask the chat.
You want to ask the chat? All right,
Yeah,
guys, here in the chat.
I need a lifeline here, guys.
All right, let's see. Let's pull up the chat. Let's see if anybody.
Because if I guess and I guess wrong, I lose, right?
No, you don't lose. It's just, you just the best of 5, and you can get on the record board for top 3. So let's see what we're saying. That is definitely Sneaky Link.
Oh wait, so
Oh no.
are we? Is this
It's
all
not- it's not-
films
it's
or
not-
is it music videos too? or?
It's not a music video. It's
a
what's a
film.
show, right?
It's a film.
It's a
It's a
movie.
movie.
It is a movie.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a movie.
Is it? They don't know. A lot of help you guys did.
Well, they're saying. So we actually just shot this last music video here.
Oh yeah.
With Lil Jon and Nine, and we actually did like a similar shot. Not with this as an inspiration. It was just in there, but we did like the lambda head and close up of the teeth and spinning it around. So
Okay,
super,
so
super cool.
I'm
But
going
that's
to
not what it
say,
is, yeah.
I forgot. It's a movie. I forgot the name of it. It's a movie with
Come on, chat, help her out.
Wesley Snipes.
Oh no.
No,
You
no
know
Wesley
what
in
I'm
there.
thinking of, right? No, I have no idea.
No, chat. Anybody in
I
chat?
lost.
Let's check YouTube. No, nobody wants to help Jackie out here. Damn.
What is it?
You give up?
I give up.
What you got?
It's ATL.
It is.
Oh, ATL, the TV show.
No, not the TV show,
Oh.
the movie.
Atlanta. Wait.
No, Atlanta's the TV show.
Right.
ATL
Yeah.
is the movie with T.I. and,
Oh yeah, I've never seen
And
that.
that's why I got confused. That's why I was the TV show, because I was thinking of Atlanta as well. But yeah. Okay, cool.
I've never seen that. I didn't even know there was a.
It came out. Yeah, came out like damn near when I was in high school, like 2005, 6.
Well,
in there.
All right, here we go. We'll end it off on a good one. You got to know this one, right?
yeah, that's Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, 4 out of 5.
Where else are you gonna see him like that with? You know what I mean? Like he's
The hair,
fantastic.
the hair
Yeah.
says it all. The hair
Yeah.
says it all.
You gave me one hard one.
Well, there you go, everybody. That was our Guess That Frame segment.
Yay!
Thank
I
you
got
so much.
4 out of 5. I'm so proud
That's
of
actually
myself.
that might be the second or third best score we've gotten on Guess That Frame. So I'm telling y'all, she came in here acting like shit, no shit, but here we are. So yeah, thank you guys so much for participating in that segment as well. That's always a fun one as well. I love.
Yeah,
I
that was
love
a lot of
Guess That
fun.
Frame.
I like that.
Yeah, I like when Cash is here as well, because he has this whole spiel where he's just like, I'm not even gonna attempt to do it. Just you guys watch the past podcast episodes and you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's a whole spiel. It's really, really good. So awesome. So again, thank you guys for participating in that Guess That Frame. And yeah, so let's get right back into the meat of everything. What do you feel people misunderstand about you the most?
Ooh, that's a good question. me that before.
Oh yeah.
My intentions. I think people misunderstand my intentions. I have a tendency to be very honest and very blunt sometimes to my own detriment, and I will admit that sometimes I don't come across as the kindest person. My intention is never to be unkind or rude or in any way insensitive, but I do think that because my New York blunt street kind of mentality, like, of being straightforward and honest can be misunderstood. I think people tend to misconstrue my intentions and think that, I'm not a good person. Or they just question it, and I think, yeah, at the moment, that's my answer. It would probably change like an hour from now.
Gotcha.
And tomorrow and the next day.
Quick, I'm probably gonna ask you that one more time. I think your mic,
I think it's the wire
it's the wire, right?
when she
So that,
touches it.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, I think it's that right there.
Can you hear me now? I won't touch
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, let me see.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Sorry, guys. Quick intermission here. I think it's disconnecting a little bit. Oh yeah, oh yeah, it is this wire here.
Oh.
Everything's kind of loose. All right.
Yeah, I hear the.
Go
How's
to-
that? Is that better?
That's better.
Yeah?
Is it?
Okay. So I won't move the mic. I'll just leave it like that.
Yeah.
Talk again.
Hello? Hello? Or should I move it?
I think. Okay, hold on. Just go to the intro screen real quick, and then go ahead and mute the mics.
Hello?
And
Hello?
testing.
It's still.
Is it?
No, I mean, I can hear myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are we good?
Hey.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
You good?
All right. Chat. Let us know. Are we good? We back live? You should be able to move it now. I think it was just that
Okay.
wire.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm like worried to
Yeah?
touch it.
All right. Kill the music. All right. We back?
Hello.
Chat. We back? We live?
We're back.
I think we're good. Okay, cool.
All right.
My game might be a little bit too high as well. Yeah, turn me down a little bit as well. Yeah. Check. Oh, yeah. Oh, we dialed in now. We dialed in. All right, sorry about that, y'all. A little bit of tech difficulties, but quick little swap there. Yeah, as a filmmaker, we are problem solvers, so always got to be ready to go.
Absolutely.
I don't think we caught all of that whole segment. So I'm gonna ask you the question again.
Okay.
What is something that people misunderstand about you?
Okay. So as I was saying before, I think people misunderstand my intentions because of the way that I tend to deliver my honesty at times. I'm very blunt and I can be sharp with the way that I say things sometimes. And I'm working on that. I'm a work in progress, as we all are. But I think because of that, people misunderstand my intentions and tend to think that, or not necessarily think, but expect or wonder whether or not I have good intentions. But I do, I do. I'm one that is big on like making sure that people know your truth. And I just have to work on not being so blunt about it sometimes.
I mean, you're from New York, so.
I know. It's both good and bad because only people in New York understand it. And then when I'm outside of New York, it's like, she's a bitch. And it's like, nah, okay, how do I say this nicely? I think that, I have to like really try.
Well, it's interesting because, so I met a few people from New York and, it's kind of like they even say that people in like LA and California are like even like the reverse of that, but too much, right? Where
Super
it's like they're like too lenient, right? Or too like beating around the bush. Where it's like if there's a problem, that they'll be like, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. When in reality, it's like, no, like you fucked up.
Right. And then instead of talking to you about it, they'll talk to someone else, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Talk to me. I'm the person that you're having the issue with. Let's resolve this.
Yeah, and just being straight up with it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
But I mean, it is what it is. And why is that though? Is it the weather in New York? Is that why everybody's like just super, super?
No, you know what I think it is? I think I figured it out. I think New York is a place that is just teeming with energy. There are so many people all over the place that you get really used to being surrounded by humanity. And in a place like Los Angeles, you're constantly in your car. You're never really around people. So it's not as easy to communicate with people. When you're around people all the time, you just kind of get used to the idiosyncrasies of someone who is not you and not your family and not close to you. So it becomes a much more sort of, I think, open platform to communicate with each other in ways that we don't normally communicate with each other versus Los Angeles, where if you're in your car all the time and then you see a person, you might be like, you know what I mean? So I didn't want to see anyone today. Where in New York, you can't avoid that,
Yeah. That's interesting. That's a perspective I've not heard before, but
I thought about it a long time because this has been an issue for a long time for me. I'm like, what is why is this?
Yeah.
And I just genuinely think it's because you're constantly around people in New York. And if you're running late for work and it happens consistently where people are in your way, eventually you're going to be like, get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that just translates to everything. But no.
Yeah.
And the weather. No, just kidding.
Yeah. And the weather.
Yeah, no, that's interesting too. But no, I think it's just like anything. There's a balance, right? And it's funny that both those places are like on the coast because it's like the far leans to each side.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But yeah, that's interesting in terms of the whole duality and everything. So that would be what everybody kind of misunderstands about you, at least on the surface, you would say. And what are some like other like obstacles that you've encountered? Like any other things that you've had to overcome in your career that you want to talk about, or how do you like kind of showcase like your talent, or how do you showcase like your abilities, and how do you like overcome like maybe some prejudice you may come across? Because I mean, obviously, like whether you like it or not, I mean there is barriers, right? Whether you're a person of color, whether you're a woman, whether you're part of the LGBTQ community, there's other barriers, whether it's in life in general, but even in the film industry, that you have to overcome. And what are some of those things that you've encountered, and what are some things that you've had to?
Well, I think in the past I would have really like pontificated on all the things that have gone wrong in this industry and whatnot. But I think as I've gotten older and now starting to create my own content, I try not to pay attention to the things that hold us back. I just try to create avenues, and like you mentioned earlier, problem solve to create avenues for people that might feel like they're being held back or discriminated against. Because, I'm lucky in that I can write. I am a writer. I can create, content that and projects and stories that are more inclusive, whether it's, with women, LGBTQ, BIPOC, you know, so I try to focus on what I can do versus what is not, you know, available to me.
I love that. Having that, yeah, having that attitude of what can we do instead of focusing on like
Right.
what's holding me back
Like,
or what.
yeah,
What are the,
like,
yeah.
like, let's get out of this victim mentality. We're not victims anymore. We are, you know, people who are just as strong, just as capable as everybody else. And 9 times out of 10, when you meet the people in power, they are not at all what you thought they would be. They are just like you and me, sometimes just bumbling their way through. We can
Interesting.
all, you know, create what we want to create. So I try to stay away from that victim mentality.
And that's also one of the things that we touched on earlier as well, in terms of like having the stuff more available now, not having that middle person that can create even more barriers because
Exactly.
of how they feel about who you are, whatever it may be. It's like, no, I'm going to go out and make that film or do, or
Exactly.
whatever and have it be
Exactly.
shown to the right people.
Yeah,
So,
we have the tools available to us and we can take advantage of that if we really want to. And so if you'd rather complain about it, then you're wasting your time. I mean, I can make a movie with this little thing in my hand. You know what I mean? Even if you don't have, you know, a good sound designer, I think it's not the camera, it's the person behind the camera. It's the story you're telling. And ultimately, all you really need to tell a really great story, and some might disagree with me, is a great script, some great actors, and good sound. Other than that, everything else can be ignored. And even if you don't have good sound, do a silent film. You know what I mean? Like, figure it out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never tried to make a silent film before.
I know, me neither. I just thought, I should do that. It'd be
How do
fun.
you, okay, so I've actually not even really ever watched silent films. Like, what is the method of the storytelling in that? Is it all
I would imagine
like
it's
like
a lot of
subtitles?
subtitles on screen and
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, but
yeah.
you could really like maybe create a new genre in a new way, and maybe silent film is no longer this like big, massive like, oh, let's be big like we are on stage. Maybe it's really small and really simple, and it's maybe there aren't any subtitles. I mean, you can create, right? It'd
Yeah.
be fun.
Okay, cool. Let's make a project, guys. You guys down?
Let's do it.
All right,
I
cool.
got some ideas.
Yeah. Or
Oh yeah, what are they? I want to hear them now.
yeah. Talk to me. What are some ideas that you got?
Well, you would be like playing music, so it's kind of like whatever the music is, it's like you depicting that feeling. So like, you know, let's say like it's a upbeat dance beat. It's like a girl practicing dancing, and then like she gets a call, and then it's like sad music start playing. So she, you know, so you can.
So
do
the
it
music
without,
informs the narrative.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's how I would do.
That's pretty cool.
If you think about it, music videos are silent films, right?
it. Right.
Not when you're on set. It's just loud.
Right.
No, that's interesting. And I wanted to ask this question to you guys as well. Have you guys ever seen a movie that was only narrated in sign language?
Narrated in
Oh,
sign
That'd be
language.
interesting.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, they did that recently with the new Creed, right? Where the daughter.
I think they
had
did part of it. Like I'm sure
part
there've
of
been
it where
parts
she
of
was
it,
signing. Yeah.
but a whole story. Interesting.
No,
Yeah.
I have never seen that. That would be really interesting.
But then again, your market would only be people that understand sign language, unless you put subtitles. Of
Well,
course,
you'd have to
but
put subtitles.
yeah.
Yeah, it's another language, so
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
that would be very cool.
I did a couple years of sign language back in college, and it was fun. Yeah,
That is a new. That's fantastic. That's a new twist on the silent film. That's fantastic.
I don't remember any of it, but I remember this is A.
You're talking
B,
about the
C.
actors doing sign language?
Yeah,
Yeah.
every like the way they
Okay.
communicate is all sign
Yeah,
language.
Okay.
That'd be wild.
Yeah.
This is I will always love you.
There you, or what's the other one? It's bullshit, I think, or something.
Yeah. Bullshit. Like this, the horns and the shit. And then
I don't know if that's true, by the way. I hope we don't get. I think that's how you say it. But
Yeah,
if
yeah, I
not,
think
like for
so.
those of you that do understand sign language, no hard feelings, please.
there was a song that I learned. It was a Bette Midler song. Beautiful face to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero?
Yeah, see you. Okay, we're making this a reality. All right, you already speak enough sign language, so we can get this whole thing briefly started. But that reminds me, have you guys seen that the thing on the internet where like a lot of these like people that are the sign language interpreters aren't actually like sign language interpreters? They get the job and then they're just like doing.
Shut
gibberish.
up! Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to it, but like there was one where it was like for this really high profile like murder case or something like that, and this this lady who's like had a history of fraud, but she gets hired, doesn't know any sign language, and then the people that actually spoke sign language were like, yeah, she's basically just singing Jingle Bells right now. Wow,
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Well, they
Yeah.
also say that you should that you should learn sign language at a school with people who are actually deaf
Yeah.
versus from anyone who isn't, because most of the time they're not even signing properly. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because well, where I'm from, the Bay Area up north, one of the biggest, one of the bigger communities for that is in Fremont, California, and so that was kind of interesting to be kind of in that culture a little bit. So
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
I just like different cultures in general, you know, in terms of, you know, whether it be sign language or
Yeah, like I
anything
said,
like
it's
that,
about
so.
it's learning, you know, like anything that's new and different. And I don't know, I'm interested in all of it. I think that's what makes a good creative, you know. There was one time I was at a bar, this kind of like watering hole near my house that I loved, that I used to frequent. And there was a group of people that came in and they were all so quiet, and I wasn't really paying much attention to them. I think I was ordering something from the bar, and then I turned around and they were all speaking to each other in sign language, and there was really loud music, and I was like, oh, that would be really beneficial now, so I didn't have to scream over all this music.
Yeah.
But it was really cool to see, you know, because you rarely see that. It was like a group of people that were just signing to each other, and I was like, this is so cool.
Helps a lot when you're in the club. So
Yeah.
we have a question from the chat. CISO asking, what is your process when your project gets to post?
Who's asking that?
Chris is asking that.
Chris. Hi, Chris. Well, post is something that I have recently had issues with. Let's just leave it at that. So I think for me, I try to make sure if I'm directing something that I know how I want it. I know the transitions between shots and between scenes beforehand, so that I know what I'm shooting, so that when we get to post, it makes it a little bit easier. That said, I feel like there's a big difference between the creatives you work with on set and the people that you work with in post. Post is it's a very different world, because you're not communicating with everyone on set. You're kind of in your own world, in your own bubble. And so it's harder to get across sort of the ideas that you want expressed, because I feel like it's a more technical role, whether it's editing or color or sound. You're really working alone. And so communicating with people like that it's been a barrier for me. It's been hard to like figure out how to do that without knowing the specifics of the technicalities of everything. So I think, again, like I said earlier, prep is the most important, and also making sure that you are relying on the people you know and you trust to refer and recommend people, you know, for the post process if you don't already have them. And if you have them, to make sure you keep working with the same people, as long as you understand each other and have a shorthand. I think all of those things are beneficial.
Yeah, and you actually have something in post right now, I believe.
I do. I have 2 projects in post. I have a short film called Dandelion, which is about, I can't really tell you what it's about, but I can tell you that it's a story about a little girl who tries to escape her abusive surroundings and ends up hearing someone crying behind her bookcase, and she kind of moves the bookcase and sees a hole leading to somewhere else.
Oh, that's why you brought that up earlier.
Yeah,
and I think that's the one that we
yeah.
have the stills from, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You have
Dito,
stills
if you
over.
want to pull that up and have that playing, or at least shown while Jackie's talking about the story here.
Those are stills from the film, not yet colored or anything. So they're like early examples of what the film kind of feels and looks like. And then I have my first feature film, which is executive produced by Louis Guzman, who is a dear friend of mine, fantastic. He's just so supportive and just an overall wonderful creative. And he's in it as well. And Andre Royo's in it, and just so many people that I love and admire. This was a labor of love and a passion project. It's called Miles Away. It's about a rideshare driver who is like on a collision course with reality, because she's contending with a thankless job and no money, and a sister with mental health issues across the country. So it does have underlying socio-political themes about, you know, the disparity between the rich and the poor, and what it takes to make your dreams come true, and sort of how how what you deal with personally affects, you know, not only you, but the world at large.
I love that. Yeah. It's amazing. And then I think you also have one more.
Devil Row. Yes,
Yeah.
Devil Row. So I was an actress in that film. That was a film that was directed by Thomas Churchill, another awesome creative that I work with. It was a story that came about, I think, through I think it was first a comic book, if I'm not mistaken, and a man by the name of Vincent Ward from The Walking Dead kind of put together a script with Thomas, and he's in it. Tony Todd's in it, who is one of my all-time favorite. I mean, he's Candyman.
I was gonna say
He's the original Candyman, dude.
Yeah.
Like Nightmare on Elm Street and Candyman are my two favorite horror films franchises, and yeah, I mean, how can you say no to Candyman? You know what I mean?
You can't say no to the classics and the legends, man.
No, not at all. So that's gonna be really cool. That's in theaters, AMC theaters specifically on June 9th. I don't remember the exact date, but it's in my bio in my Instagram. So just
I love it.
click
Yeah.
on that.
Speaking of, yeah, we'll get those links posted as well. Actually, Cash, if you could post Jackie's Instagram in the chat, that'd be amazing. Let's get that going. So if you guys are following her now, be sure to give Jackie a follow. Where else can we find you as well? Are you on IMDb as well?
Yeah, I'm on IMDb.
Okay,
Just
cool.
Google my name.
Yeah, so we'll get that going as well. So yeah, go do the Googles, guys. Go do the Googles. We also have another kind of follow up question to that as well. What are some good etiquettes to keep in mind as an editor when working with a director for narrative projects? So coming as from, because Chris is an editor as well. He does many things, but primarily editing. So I think he's asking more from the perspective of like, if you're in the editor's shoes, what are some good etiquettes to keep in mind when working with directors and other?
I think it's important, and I think this is important for directors too. I think it's really important to remember that like the editing process is the very last sort of, there's the story that you write, the story that you direct, and the story that you edit, and the story that the editor kind of has the final say on what the story is. So I think it's really important for the director to allow the editor's vision and to allow the editor to do their own pass on it. But then I think the editor has to be willing to let it go and understand that like this ultimately is the vision of the director, and you can work together. But I think there have been barriers between me and editors in the past where because they put in a lot of work and energy and effort, it's not that work, energy, and effort is not respected. It's just that we might have differing opinions on certain things. And so I think the collaborative process of like, what do we keep and what do we let go of needs to be understood. I think more. I think there's a lot of editors that take things personally when you change it, and I think as a writer I totally understand that, because as a fledgling writer I would get really offended when people would tell me, oh, this isn't working, and then I realized no, this is making the story better. This doesn't mean I'm a bad writer. This means, hey, you can make this better, and don't you want to do that? Yeah, so I think not taking things personally and recognizing that everything is in service of the story and not your vision. Not obviously there's a director's vision ultimately, but it's in service of the story.
I want to double up on that as well, because even more so than that, as a crew member, as a crane operator, as a camera operator, there's been feedback that I've been given before where it's like, oh, be smoother with it, or like so like little inputs where I'm just like, in my mind I'm like,
what does that mean?
Well, yes, but there's part of it where I wants to be like, yo, like what the fuck, like let me do my thing, what I mean? But in reality it's like, then you reflect back upon it, and then you think about like what you could have done better, and then it just goes down at the end of the day to not, like you said, not take it personal, and be open to it. Be open to the feedback. Don't always think like, oh, like I'm yada yada yada, like whatever it may be. There's always ways to improve. There's always ways to do that, and especially when you work with people that you trust, and they give you feedback, whether it be like, yo, do something better, or like whatever it may be. Right. It's not an attack on your abilities. It's not an attack on what you're doing. It's just like to service ultimately, commonly how can we make it better.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not personal at all. And I think it's really easy to go to that space and take it personally, because we are, at the end of the day, all artists, and artists are very passionate about their work. so that's kind of a double-edged sword. You have to be able to take your passion and understand that this is also a business and we're also creating together, and it's not personal. It's just, hey, you did that really great, but also we can try this and this could be good too. Maybe your way works better, but maybe this works better, or maybe there's a happy medium somewhere in between.
You've been in California too long. If you were in New York, you would have been like, hey, fuckface, come on. Hand left faster. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, catch me on a bad day.
I know. Catch me outside. How about that? No, but I mean, yeah. So, Chris, hopefully that answers your question, man. Thank you so much for the questions. If you guys have any more questions in the chat, feel free to put them in as well. We love the questions from the chat, guys. So keep them coming. Cash is asking, when would you draw the line in terms of creative control, though?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't. I guess I don't know exactly what you mean by creative control, because
I think he's more, correct me if I'm wrong, Cash, but I think you're asking more of like drawing the line, like when would you relinquish some of that creative control, I guess? Like,
I think
so for
that
example, like,
I think that it, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
but
yeah.
I'm thinking in terms of like business,
Mhm.
and I think if we're thinking business and we're thinking Final Cut, is that what we're talking about, or?
So I think it's more of like, obviously you're in director role for this particular example. You're with the editor, I'm thinking, right? And obviously ultimately it's your vision, but when do you kind of draw, so you're saying like if the editor's pushing back, I guess, like if like when would you kind of, so you're saying to put your foot down? Okay, so they're saying if the editor's pushing back and the editor's correct. Ooh, they're getting spicy in the chat. Okay, so
well,
So,
let's just say this: there's never a right and wrong with creativity.
true.
There's just a subjective point of view. So when that happens, if the editor does not have final cut, they have to relinquish control.
Okay.
I mean, if you're working as an editor that is also a producer and whatnot, then you might be in a bit of a back and forth. But I think that kind of comes down to, did you work this out in the contracts ahead of time? Because that's the business aspect, right? And if the editor has final cut, then the editor has final say. But if the editor doesn't, and it creates kind of, butting heads at the end of the day, even if the editor doesn't agree and it makes the project worse, it's not the editor on the line for that. It's the director. And so it'll affect the director's career. It won't affect the editor's career as much. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So I think you go, okay, and this is the New York coming out. If you want to be a dick and you don't want to listen to what I'm telling you because this is clearly the way to go, then put it out like this and see what kind of response you get. I'll work again. You might not, but I will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I hate to say that, but I mean, that's, I think, when all else fails, if you feel like you're right and you are arguing tooth and nail and nothing's getting through, you have to kind of succumb to whoever gets final cut, whether that's the producer, the director, whoever it is. Yeah.
So it goes creative, and then business comes in and
Correct.
politics come in when they need
to make sure that any kind of disputes are resolved properly. Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, that's crazy to think about, but hopefully that answers your question, guys. I think that's what we were talking about. So, yeah.
Does that answer? I don't know.
I feel like it does. I mean, so it's kind of, again, there's two sides to it, right? There's the, I have creative control, I have the final say, but then it's like, because when you say like, editor is correct, are you talking about when there should be a cut? Are you talking about when?
Yeah, it's such a broad kind of range. It's such a broad question, and there are so many ways that you can have disagreements with anyone on set or in post. But I always feel like there's a creative way out of it, and I don't think I've had like real blowout arguments with anyone about creative. That's never been the issue. The issues have always been about ego, not creative. Yeah.
That makes sense. So let's talk about this as well. What does your morning routine look like? What are your other things you do outside of your job that help you as a person, that prepare you to take on the day, to take on the world, and they can do with your job, and they can do with the industry as well. But what does Jackie look like on a daily basis?
I take my vitamins, I drink my water, I go for walks, I make sure I'm out in nature, I see the sun. I'm a big nature lover, so, and I don't live far from the Central Park of LA, Griffith Park. So I do like to make sure that I go hiking or that I, at least walk through the neighborhood once a day. I definitely try to do something creative every day, if not, inform myself about what's, happening in my business, or make sure I watch something or read something. Yeah. And I also have my other 10 million jobs that I do to supplement my income. So there's that.
No, I hear you.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty typical of most people's days, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then we also have a follow-up question as well to that is, what motivates you to pursue your creative career?
I don't know how to do anything else.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't feel like I'm
passionate wise, or like,
oh yeah, no,
or logistical wise.
But I mean, we can all
Yeah.
learn how to do something new, right?
Yeah.
I just don't have it in me, like, to sit at a desk for 8 to 10 hours a day, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I could again, but it feels almost suffocating to even think about, if that makes sense.
And that's crazy to think about too, because even like 4 hours doing something you don't enjoy, whereas, again, we could be in the freezing desert or on our feet for 14 hours or whatever it may be, and just be happy as can be.
Exactly.
It's just crazy.
But put me behind a desk with the perfect climate and
No.
you give me a gun. Let's play Russian roulette. Like,
No,
it's,
no,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, but don't get me wrong. If you have to do it, you do it. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think I pursue this because I love it. Like, I just, whenever I try to stop, I can't. I get another story idea, or someone calls me to help them on something, or, someone wants me to do a table read, or, you know what I mean? And
So let's talk about that. You say when you try to stop. So have you tried, let's talk about things in
oh,
the
I've tried to
past.
quit a million times.
You try to quit the industry.
Every day. I'm like, I'm not doing it. This is crazy. I can't do this anymore.
And what causes you to feel that way? And how do you, like, what's the process?
I think it's just frustration for an inability to do all the things that I want to do, which I think is typical of anybody in this business. As an artist, you want to be able to create all the time, and that's not feasible, right? But I want to create at a higher level every time I do it, which is also much more difficult. Like right now, I'm in the process of raising funds for my next film. Miles Away was a different story. This is something bigger. It's I think more important in the scheme of things in terms of what I'm trying to say, and so there is a barrier to entry every time you try to elevate. And so I think the frustration is like, okay, how do I get to this next level, and what are the new pathways or the new things I need to learn and whatnot. And when you're doing that consistently, you hit barriers left and right. And so I think the frustration comes from that. And I'm like, I'm done with this business. I'm just done.
Yeah.
We all do it.
I know, it's such a, I don't know. It's just crazy too. And you said it, you really hit it on the head for me as well. You want to create at a higher level. Mm-hmm. And because it's like, they always say like, oh, done is better than perfect, or like, just keep creating all this sort of stuff. Yes, that's true, because there is such thing as perfectionism, and that can hinder you as well. But even like, for example, a good example is we've been in the studio here, creating like internal content. And even when we try to create internal content and do like how-to videos, or like, TikTok content or Instagram content, like for me, it's like, it's so simple on the surface. It's just like, we'll just talk about the things that you do on a daily basis or whatever it be. And it's like, it is simple, but I take it in my head one step further, where I'm like, okay, well, we need to make sure it's lit correctly and do all this sort of stuff. And like, I want to make sure it's like all these little things, because we've been doing this for so long that it's like, we don't want to put anything less. And people may not even notice. They may just be like, oh, it's great. But in my mind, obviously, I may have some judgments going on with that. So.
Right. And I think, let's be real, the general public doesn't know the difference between film and digital, right? But we do. And the people in the business who are going to offer you the bigger and better opportunities do. And so ultimately, while I do it for myself, I also do it, because I want to ensure longevity in my career.
That makes sense. So let's see. So I guess the best part to kind of, how do you find yourself to kind of find the balance between the perfectionism and creating at that high level, but also not just sitting on a project for like 15 years?
I've been sitting on dandelion for a long time, but part of that was
Yeah.
due to the pandemic. So, I think you rely on the people that you trust, that you create with, to tell you when to stop.
True.
You know, like, because you can overcorrect and create something that doesn't work. And I think, you know, as long as you have people that you trust in your circle, they can help you to recognize when you're overcorrecting and when you're being too much of a perfectionist, and when it's time to, you know, throw up your hands and say, time to release it into the world.
So it all comes back to the community. It all comes back to your circle.
Yep,
Essentially.
absolutely. Yep.
It's huge. Now, what if everybody in your circle is just perfectionists and nothing ever gets done?
You need a new circle.
Circle. That's not so true. Oh man. I mean, Dito, OJ, you have anything to add about like perfectionism versus the just getting it done out into the world and everything we talked about there?
I mean, for me, it's like I consider myself like a perfectionist. Like I don't want something to be out in the world unless I feel like I want it to be seen. So I'll put the time in to just get it right, because to me, at the end of the day, it makes sense to just get it right before you put it out.
Now,
Yeah.
but it's all subjective though, right? So I guess it comes down to your opinion and what you kind of see as a high level then, huh?
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Because it is subjective.
Yeah,
It's art.
For
definitely.
me, I like other people's opinion on stuff. So if it's just my opinion, it'll never be done.
Yeah, exactly.
I wait for somebody to be like, "Oh, I like that," and I'm like, "Cool, it's done." Like I'm willing to let go of the perfection.
Yeah.
Because you're making stuff for other people's opinion at the end of the day. Because that's why you got like thousands of projects you never finish. But the stuff that people act like, "Hey, you need to put that out," it's pretty much like you let it go, you know. Otherwise, it was like something you made 5 years ago. You just finally perfecting. So
I would say I agree with most of what you said. The only thing I would challenge is putting things out for other people and other people's opinions. I think there have been so many projects that people didn't like initially that ended up being the best projects that were made in the past. Like, I think one of them was Back to the Future in Star Wars. Nobody liked or understood Star Wars. They were like, what is this trash?
Yeah.
And now look at it. You know what I mean? So I think you also have to have an amount of trust and belief in yourself and your own process and your own artwork to know that there are things that you can put out that people won't understand, that eventually if you do it the right way or if you fight for it, they will come. If you build it, they will come.
that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. It's a great movie reference too.
Yeah. Field of Dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
Tearjerker.
So just so we can give a little bit of shout out as well. So you said you're raising money for your next film.
Correct.
How can people contribute to that?
Ooh, well, we are looking preferably for a financier, someone who's got deep pockets.
Yeah.
Versus smaller donations. So if anybody has referrals or whatever, you want an EP credit, you want to help out, you're a filmmaker, I'm all for it. I'm
Just
open to it.
Shoot you a DM on Instagram or?
Yep, shoot me a DM on Instagram.
Awesome. So yeah, guys, reach out to Jackie as well. It's just underscore Jackie Quinones underscore. Yeah.
Yep,
Cool.
that's it.
Awesome. Mine is the Enye that we have in the.
Yeah.
Does Instagram not allow that or?
I don't know, actually. I just don't use it because it confuses people.
Got you.
You know.
I made sure to add it.
I
in
know.
there.
I
Add
saw that. I
add a
appreciate
little
it. Thank
spice,
you.
know?
I'm surprised you knew that belonged there. I was like, oh, that's funny. I never
But
use it.
As white as I look, I'm part Mexican. Okay, so
You are?
Yes, I am.
Oh, get out. Do you
Yeah.
speak Spanish?
Poquito, sí.
Poquito?
Yeah,
Ah,
but
qué
you know,
bueno.
I don't want to act like I can hold a true conversation, but I can get by with a little bit. So
That's okay. People don't think I'm Puerto Rican, so.
see, I wish
Same
so.
boat.
And I wish I knew more Spanish, but the only people in my family that spoke Spanish were like my great grandma and stuff like that. And they kind of like, they were the type where it's like, oh, you know, you're in America now, so like, you know, speak English and
Right,
stuff. And then
Right.
my whole like mom's side is all, you know, Irish and stuff like that. So I never really I never grew up with it per se. And then I tried to like kind of reconvene with it like throughout high school, take Spanish classes. And then of course like the jobs I worked over the
Right.
time I did too. But I just never got to really be like immersed in it. So I got like
Yeah.
that Duolingo Spanish vibe where I can communicate a little bit, but like if you wanted to ask me
Yeah,
about
but
my
that's
day,
better
you
than
know.
nothing, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's better than nothing. And
Yeah.
I'm really lucky that I was immersed in it when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not the best Spanish speaker, but I am fluent. You know, I
Yeah.
can have a conversation, and but yeah, I was really lucky that my grandmother and my mom thought that it was important that I learn Spanish because it's become kind of like the second language in the U.S. And I mean, in Europe, they speak a million languages. So why shouldn't we also, you know?
Yeah. Got you.
Doesn't make you any less American.
Yeah. I mean, well, American's just a melting pot in general.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so we do have a question in the chat here. I'm going to rephrase it just a little bit, just kind of give it more of a general statement. How do you deal with bullying, and how do you deal with just kind of negative people in general? I guess in
Interesting.
particular, like how do you deal with that sort of stuff?
Boundaries.
Boundaries. Okay.
If you don't let them infiltrate your space, they won't infiltrate your life, your mentality, your thought process. And so I think you really have to set boundaries with people. You know, if somebody says something or does something that is offensive or kind of bullying, you have to let them know that that's not okay. And once you let them know a couple times, if they don't listen or they don't pay attention or they don't know how to change their behavior, sorry, but you can't be a part of my life anymore. And that's it.
So this particular person in general is saying that it's more of like a school situation, and that school doesn't want to do anything about it. How do you deal with something like that?
Oh, the school doesn't want to do anything about it?
According, yeah, that's what I'm getting from that.
Yikes, that's difficult. That's hard because you can't really, you know, set a boundary with someone who you see all the time, right?
Yeah.
I think the best thing to do is, and I don't know if this works. I don't know how old you are or what kind of school you go to, but maybe try talking to that person. A lot of times people who are bullies are in pain, you know? They are taking out their pain on someone else, and maybe there's been a miscommunication or a misunderstanding between the two of you that you're not aware of. Communication is always the best bet, and if that doesn't work, you just got to try to avoid them.
Yeah.
But I understand because there was some bullying that happened to me when I was in school as well, so I get it. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to address.
That was huge.
Yeah.
I think that was really huge. What you said too is like a lot of that stuff does stem from their own personal problems and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
it's like what the pain that you experience that you don't know how to process sometimes spills over onto other people. And so I think understanding and empathy is the best retaliation, communication, some way of trying to understand where the other person is coming from. And even a small gesture makes a difference, you know?
definitely, that's great. I like that. Better than I could have answered it. So thank you, Jackie. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, actually, I have another question for you. What is like the best compliment you've ever received? I guess particularly like in terms of your work and more in terms of the film industry.
Oh, geez. I don't know. That's something I'd have to think about.
You just receive them too much. You just kind of get
No, I don't receive many at all.
Interesting.
The best compliment I've ever received about my work.
Or even just you as a person. Like, has anybody come up to you and be like, "Yo, I really enjoy working with you. You're my favorite director. You're my favorite writer. You're my favorite," you know?
I don't think I'd focus on that as much. I think the best compliments that I would like to receive have to do with my character.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone were to say, you know, you're really intelligent, or you're, you know, I love the way that you handled, you know, so-and-so situation, or like those to me are more meaningful because they comment more on who I am versus what I do. Or,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
That makes a lot of sense.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I think, I think it kind of can blend the two. And I think some people, like, I know sometimes I not like to, but I notice sometimes I subconsciously kind of shut out sometimes compliments because like, I think naturally my mind wants to think like, oh, I don't want it to get to my head, but it might even come from like even a sense of like insecurity sometimes, or even imposter syndrome sometimes too. You know,
absolutely. And I also sort of feel like you can hang your hat on a compliment that has to do with something that's exterior to you, right? Like say you shot like an amazing scene, right? you can hang your hat on that, but how do you do that again? And where does that come from? Like, what's the impetus and the genesis of that shot that you shot, right? It's not the shot itself, it's what's behind it. And so the compliment isn't really about the shot. The compliment is about how you were able to create
Execute
that.
it and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how can you recreate that? How do you recreate greatness?
And don't hang your hat on it for too long, because you know those like high school championship
Yeah.
football winners that are like 20 years later, they're like, yeah, I remember back
Beer
in
belly and
990.
bald and yeah, exactly.
So there's always going to be balance, just like with anything in life. There's
Yeah.
always going to be balance. It's awesome. We're coming to the end of our podcast here. So if you guys in chat want to ask any more questions, feel free to put in the chat now. I got a couple more questions for you as well. And no, Faded, we're not attacking you, bro. Don't worry. Trust me.
Who's that? What?
It's one of my buddies in chat. He's like,
Hi.
he's like, oh, I feel shot. No, we're just kidding. But yeah, and if Dito, OJ, if you guys have any more questions to ask, feel free to ask that now. But do you have a favorite production that you've been on in particular?
There was a production early on. It was a complete shit show. I'm not going to mention the name of it.
Okay.
It was awful, but the producers and everybody involved were so fun that we were literally singing like we were having karaoke parties in the trailers while we were shooting. It was fun. It was a really fun production. I met a lot of really great people on that set, and I still continue to communicate with a lot of them. A lot of them are really successful now, so it's nice. Yeah.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
I got a question.
Yeah.
When you write, are you writing more like original stories, or are you trying to give people like what they want, like viewers what they want to see and what they want to hear?
I never consider what viewers want to see and what they want to hear. The way that I write is from a place of honesty. So if there's something that interests me, I will think about it and think about it and think about it and think about it and think about the story. And I never put pen to paper until I know my beginning, my middle, and my end. And that comes about from thinking. Like, you can think, oh, this is a great idea and I'm going to write it and I'm going to, structure it. But I don't think that that's the way that you create a good story. I think the way to create a good story is when you cannot forget the turning points within the story. So, for instance, if I'm talking about you drinking, coffee, for instance, and you spill the coffee and, somehow that leads to you finding out you have cancer, let's say. Sorry.
Wow.
Told you I'm dark. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Or it leads you to finding out somehow that you got a great new job. Sorry, that's horrible. I'm so sorry.
No, you can spit it however you want.
I'm sorry.
I'm following.
No, you're getting a new job. Well, how do we get from point A to point B, and what's the most interesting route, and what's the most memorable? And the more you think about it, the more you realize that, like, oh, something you think is a great idea, a week later you might be like, what was that idea? And if you can't remember it, it's not a great idea. So you keep doing that. You keep doing that over and over and over again until finally you have a story where you can't forget it. Then you're ready to write. Then you're ready to put the structure together.
I love that. And do you ever find yourself, you may have already kind of answered this a little bit, but do you ever find yourself working backwards though? Like, because a lot of times, like, some people, I feel like the natural sort of way to go about it is like, okay, I have a story, we start here. But it's like, have you ever thought about starting with where the climax is and then kind of working your way back?
Absolutely.
And kind of doing it that
Absolutely,
way as well?
yeah.
Kind of
I
start with
don't.
the why, not the how or the what, but the why.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't ever start with the how or the what. Actually, I always start with the why. Like, why am I telling this story? I have an obligation as a storyteller to make sure that my work is conscious and holds up a mirror to humanity so that we can become more self-aware ultimately. I think that's what storytelling is all about. Good storytelling. And of course, that happens in multiple ways. You can have a movie like Superbad where we're really just talking about like the dramas of being kids and laughing at ourselves. And that holds up a mirror to humanity in a different way than something like, say, Succession, which is discussing greed and really how the powerful are the ones that make all the major decisions in this country. So the rich and the powerful. So there are different ways to go about that. So I just try to be aware of, like, if I'm writing something, why am I writing this? Why do I feel I need to tell this story? I think that's the most important question when you're writing. Then you get to the how and the what and the how, because it's stemming from a question or a desire that needs to be something that needs to be answered or addressed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, great answer. Does that answer your question, OJ?
Yes, it does.
Awesome.
Good answer.
I see your little notepad pulled up there. I appreciate that.
Are you a writer?
No, I'm not a writer.
No?
I'm
Oh,
not a
okay.
writer.
I mean, kind of. You wrote that the dreams story,
I
right?
write-
Lightweight.
I can write a treatment for a
Yeah,
video,
yeah,
but
yeah.
not like a screenplay.
Yeah, but
narrative,
that's still a narrative. That's writing. Yeah,
yeah,
for
a
sure.
little bit.
Yeah, just gotta unlock your potential, bro. Keep at it. No, awesome, great question. Yeah, Dito, you got anything?
What's your favorite style of content to write and produce
Well, produce is different.
or
I
direct?
guess.
Writing and directing.
I think directing, I like to play with different mediums. Like, I like to play with magical realism, dance, music, animation, VFX, all in the same project. Like, a project like that is amazing. I do have a project like that, but that's fun. As far as writing, I like the freedom to explore in my writing. I think earlier I did mention I really like magic. I like to explore magical realism, things that you can't really see in real life. I think that's part of the fun of filmmaking. So things like, you showed me an image of Black Swan. That's a thriller horror, but it's based on magical realism. That's why it's so great. I mean, there's also Mother that he did, which was another one that's magical realism. Like, stuff like that to me is really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Definitely. Irvin, Lolo, any questions?
You're an actor, writer, you directed. What advice would you give to people trying to break into the industry?
So if you guys didn't pick it up on the mic, what advice do you have for people trying to break into the industry? I guess in a nutshell, right?
Yeah. I guess it depends on what level you're at, but I would say if you're just starting, to put yourself in situations where you can meet people and form relationships and talk to people about what you want to do and where you see yourself, and take menial jobs. I still do it. I don't care. I don't care if I'm a PA on set. As long as I'm helping someone I care about and I'm working on a project I really like, there's no ego involved. Leave your ego at the door. This is not a business that is going to honor or reward your ego. So get rid of that immediately and humble yourself and learn and and try as much as possible to surround yourself with people that you respect and that you want to be like.
Awesome. Good.
I guess I would ask, can you take us back to like the very first time you were performing or acting, and how did that go?
So take us back to the
wow.
very first time you were performing or acting, and how did that go? Was the question.
Oh my God, you just brought me back. Well, how old was I? I think it was like 6. I was 6 years old. My parents have a video of this somewhere. I think I might have it in my apartment, actually. I need to burn that tape.
Can you have them email it to me so I can pull it up on screen?
I played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz in a play at school. And I had to sing. And I can't sing. It was awful. I was singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And so, it's like a little kid's production, and they like hand me the microphone, and I reach out over and grab the microphone, and there's like a bunch of, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but there's a bunch of like, feedback on the mic and stuff. And then I start singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And I thought I was amazing at the time, little kid. Like, they gave me the lead role in the school play. And I became obsessed with Dorothy. I learned all her lines. I watched the movie over and over again. To this day, it's one of my favorite films. But then, years later, you're an adult and you're watching it and you're like, oh my God, this is awful. So, but I think I realized that was one of the moments where I realized, like, oh, I really like being creative. I didn't realize it was performing or filmmaking or theater, but I did know there was something about just creativity that I really loved.
I love that. Yeah. really, and I mean, it stuck with you to this day. So
Yeah,
obviously
yeah. I
it was one
love
of
The
those-
Wizard of Oz.
One of those pillars of your life for sure.
I got something to kind of piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
If you could tell your younger writing self one thing, what would it be?
Challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. I've when I was younger, I was always a good writer, and I think I only got better when I was challenged by the teachers who knew that I was bullshitting my way through, because I would write something the first time and I'd get an A, and I'd be like, oh, so easy. But it really wasn't, and it isn't. I think the best writing is rewriting, and so I would tell myself, challenge yourself. Ask yourself more questions. Do it again. Do it again. I'd be a much better writer now if I had done that before.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. That was great. So let's end it off. Where can people, obviously people can find you on Instagram. Find you on
Underscore Jackie,
IMDb.
Quinones_.
Yep, it is in the
That's my
title as well.
Instagram. That's where I'm most active. I don't really use Twitter. As a matter of fact, I got kicked off Twitter. Somebody broke in, and I can't seem to
You
get
got
back in.
banned?
I got banned.
Did Elon unban you?
Nope, not yet. Not yet, unfortunately.
Damn, that's
Yeah.
crazy. All right, so definitely on Instagram and everything like that as well. So again, if you guys are ever in need of an amazing person in general, but also that happens to do writing, directing, acting, all of the above, feel free to give her a DM on Instagram as well. Also, obviously in the Los Angeles area, if you guys are local. But yeah, outside of that, I think we're pretty much good. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just wanted to say thank you. This has been so much fun. A much better way to spend my Thursday morning than, hiking and worrying about the writer strike. So thank you.
I don't know about the hiking part because I need to see some sun. I'm
yeah,
looking a little pale.
yeah.
But yeah, maybe the
hiking
writer's
is great. Worrying about the writer strike. So
Yeah, but we'll get through it, guys. Again, remember,
thank you guys.
Yeah,
too.
stand in solidarity with our brothers, sisters, and everybody in between that are fighting for, like you said, not just the rights of the writers and people that are in the industry, but pretty much all of society, all of humanity at this point. So again, thank you, Jackie. Thank you, OJ and Dito and Lolo, sorry, and Irvin over there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Thank you guys, chat, and our sponsors today, Improvise Productions. We got Coffee Meets Cake as well. And thank you guys again for everything. We'll see you. That has been episode number 10. Peace out. Play that outro, Dito.
Hold on.
Just play the intro.